The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Mike Foster. I oversee product management at Third Wave for our standalone products, Versago and Bizweaver. By standalone, we mean that these are not Business One add-ons in the traditional sense. They are standalone applications. Versago is our portal platform, and Bizweaver is our data integration and process automation application. As you know, Third Wave has been an SAP Gold partner and a certified Business One implementer and solution provider since 2006. Today, we're going to take a close look at a specific use case for Versago and Bizweaver, actually being applied in one of our customer organizations, covering a critical supplier interaction. But I know we have some people joining today that are new to these tools, so I'm going to play a couple of very short introductory videos. First, one overviewing Versago and one kind of diagramming the relationship between Versago, Bizweaver, and Business One, or whatever backend system the tools happen to be interfaced with. Then we'll get into the supplier use case. We'll look first at the before Versago Bizweaver problem state, if you will, between the company and their suppliers, and then the after or solution state. We'll then take a look at the screens that the users interact with and a little bit about how the solution was configured. And then I'd like to show some of the many other use cases that Versago and Bizweaver have been applied to in our customers' organizations. And then we'll wrap up with a little bit of Q&A. So I'll get started with these introductory videos. They're very short, about a minute and a minute and a half. They're a couple minutes apiece to get those who are less familiar with the applications a little bit grounded. And then we'll take a look at our use cases, or our supplier use case. Versago enables any type of user across the business, internally and externally, to securely access and update information on SAP Business One using a web browser or mobile device. By providing users of all types a simple user interface for accessing or updating just the information they need in performing their jobs, Versago allows a business to better leverage its investment in Business One for the entire enterprise. No other portal or mobile app solution provides the level of flexibility that Versago does in accomplishing this. With Versago, a business can quickly and easily tailor which records or transactions on Business One users can interact with based on their role in the business or even their individual needs, and the possibilities are limitless. This configuration is accomplished using the Versago Administrative Console. But Third Wave also provides an extensive library of pre-built reports, web forms, and dashboards that are already integrated with Business One that help businesses get off the ground in hours, not days. Versago enables a business to apply elements of its brand, such as logo and color, to the user experience. It also enables posting and managing content like articles, events, and announcements, or banners for promotions, alerts, and notifications, which can be presented publicly to the user before logging in, or targeted at users upon logging in based on their role. Other live information can be incorporated as well via web APIs to sources decided by the business hosting Versago. The Versago user interface is responsive, meaning it conforms to a web browser, tablet, or smartphone. This enables users to have access when they need it and from wherever they are. All of this, together with the role-specific interactions with Business One, makes Versago a robust platform for connecting employees, customers, and partners with each other and with SAP Business One. Okay, and then one more short video, and this is the one that explains the relationship between Versago, Bizweaver, the back-end systems, and the end users, and a little bit more about the Versago system itself. Versago is a standalone web application, not a Business One add-on. One Versago installation can interface with multiple back-end databases, whether SAP Business One SQL or HANA, another SQL-based system, or systems providing a REST API. Users in any role, internal or external to the company, can access Versago via a desktop browser, tablet, or smartphone. Data available to end users is acquired via SQL queries configured in Versago. Versago can also call and present Crystal reports. When functioning as a portal to SAP Business One, Versago can access any data, including tables and fields associated with add-ons and user-defined fields. End users submit data securely via forms, like any website, which is stored initially in the Versago database. If that data is intended to be used for updates to a back-end system such as SAP Business One, the Bizweaver integration and process automation tool is used. Bizweaver is included with Versago. Workflows created in Bizweaver can perform updates in near real time or on a scheduled basis and interfaces with SAP Business One via the DI server, DI API, or services layer. Versago includes an administrative console enabling configuration and formatting of data going to users into interactive reports, charts, and dashboards. It also enables configuration of interactive forms, and of course, the ability to create and manage roles, which define what users can do, user accounts, and data filters to control what information end users can see and make changes to. To help businesses get up and running quickly for their users, Versago ships with an extensive library of standard content, which are pre-built reports, forms, and Bizweaver workflows for accessing and updating the most common types of SAP Business One documents and records. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good sense of what the tools are and at a high level what they do, what they're capable of doing. So let's dive into our supplier interaction here. First we'll talk about the before state at our customer's organization and how they related with their suppliers around this use case. So this is a company that designs and distributes handcrafted decorative works and jewelry. They have a global distribution. And they also have suppliers all over the world who tend to be small, specialized, kind of artisan shops that will tailor make to fulfill the designs that our company creates. And but one of the attributes of working with the suppliers is they're unable to fulfill everything requested on one PO. But they can fulfill partially across many POs. And this is sort of one of those little unique things that you'll find in a business where having tools like Versago and Bizweaver that can be configured quickly to conform to a special circumstance within a company, it can be very effective and useful. So this scenario, though, creates a little bit of a problem where you have for our customer, we have many vendors with partial fulfillment, and the order and fulfillment interaction is decentralized. It's over emails, it's in spreadsheets, it's over the phone potentially, it's through fax documents, and the company has the burden of coordinating all of this and as well keying in any updates into Business One. And the consequences of this are, managing the process ties people up, little typo there, but on both sides, right? Both in the supplier organization and the customer, our customer, excuse me. And, just the logistics, the manual aspect of this, there's delays, there can be errors, there can be lack of visibility at any given point in time. And of course, as we all know, all this type of stuff these issues flow down to the end customer experience, which is not always a good thing. So now let's take a look at the after state. So this is kind of a swim lane diagram that'll give you an idea of the actors involved and how the tools come into play throughout a better process, a more automated and centralized process for managing this scenario. So who are our actors? So internal to our customer, we have someone in purchasing. We have somebody at the supplier organization. And again, of course, they have multiple suppliers around the world. We also have Bizweaver, who's kind of our new star employee, and you'll see why when we get into this. Bizweaver does a lot of work. And then also within our customers organization, we have receiving. So these are the key actors. Everybody has something to do in the overall process here. So purchasing, well, the first thing they're doing is they're creating purchase orders. They're adding items to them. And our supplier via Versago has the ability to look at the requested items via a tablet or a phone or a web browser. And then across the items, designate which ones they can fulfill and which ones they can't. And again, they need an item view here, not a PO view, because they do need to be aware of the purchase order number, but they can only do partial fulfillment, so they need an item view. Those yes or no, or those approved decline indications, go into the Versago database. And then Bizweaver comes in and it will look at those records and it updates a UDF back on the item in Business One with the yes or no. It also sends an email, which is received by purchasing internally, and purchasing can then log into Versago and review these approves and declines, and then take the necessary action. The supplier can also then go in and look at all the items that they approved in Versago that they have an intention to ship, and decide how they want to organize those items and select them for being placed into shipments. And that gets recorded in the Versago database. And then Bizweaver comes along and does a whole lot of work here. It creates the shipments. It boxes the items, and to do this, it uses a UDF on the item in Business One that indicates how many items can fit in a box. So Bizweaver will kind of do the math there, divide the items up into boxes, assign the boxes to the shipments that it creates, and then actually create the SSCC labels that will be affixed to the boxes. The supplier can then come in and look at all this work that Bizweaver did in the form of a simple list, and approve the shipments and the included boxes and items within those shipments, and then that approval or that good to ship indication gets recorded into the Versago database. They can also print the labels right from Versago that were created by Bizweaver. And then purchasing back within the customer organization has the ability to come in and take a look at those shipments that the supplier has said are ready to ship, and then they can approve or not approve those shipments. But assuming they approve, that confirmation also goes into the Versago database. And then Bizweaver comes in and does more work. It picks up those records in the Versago database and uses them to create the goods receipt purchase order back in Business One. Now, our person in purchasing always has the ability to log into Versago and via a calendar view, take a look at all of those approved shipments that are now in transit. And we have another actor here within the customer organization in receiving who can also log into Versago, take a look at a calendar view of incoming shipments and indicate them. And when they hit the dock, they're going to open up and do an inspection. And the items in the box will either pass or fail inspection, and they will sign off on it right on a tablet via a signature capture field. And they'll also scan the labels that have been affixed to the boxes, which will go into the WMS system. But then Bizweaver also has more work to do here, which is it updates a UDF in the warehouse management system with the pass or fail status. And it will also take that signature that was applied via a tablet within Versago, pick up that image file, and attach it to the GRPO back in Business One. So now, of course, this isn't happening sequentially. All of these actors are performing all of these actions, whether via Versago or Bizweaver actions, simultaneously throughout every day. And it's had the effect of taking what was this manual, burdensome, error-prone process between our customer and their suppliers and centralized all the information involved within Versago, automate the interactions that need to occur between Versago Business One and WMS, And also, with all of that centralized data, you now have a repository upon which our customer could perhaps run other reports or charts or dashboards that look historically on the performance of all of this activity. So now what we'll do is we'll jump over and take a look at the end user, how these end users experience this from within Versago. Now, this is in a video, and I'm going to do a fair amount of starting and stopping here. So this is that screen, the initial screen that the supplier can come in, and they can look at all the items that have been requested by our customers. So again, this is an item view. Yes, the PO number is indicated, but really what the suppliers need to be able to do is come in and designate which items they can fulfill and then submit those. So the supplier has the ability here to kind of scan the list. They can also decline. So they can click on an item, go to a form within Versago, and just indicate that they're not going to be able to meet that. And that gets submitted. And as we saw in our diagram, that gets these approvals and declines will go back will be available for the purchasing agent to review. And then if declined, the purchasing agent can look at the comments on it and decide what course of action they want to take. Maybe they're going to move that item and try to order it from a different supplier, etc. But our supplier can also, if they don't decline, they can come in and they can indicate which items they can fulfill, hit submit, and now those will be submitted back to the Versago database. So this is both the approvals and the declines getting written back to the Versago database. They also have this calendar view, which we actually didn't show in the flow chart, but the supplier can come in and they can look at these by purchase order and expected date in a calendar view, click on those, look at the details of the PO, and here they're getting a PO level view. They can click on the items and go see the items associated with a PO. The next thing that the supplier does is with the items that they've approved, they're now going to come in and designate which ones they're ready to ship when that time comes. So you can see they have a line of instructions, like the items you want to ship together. They're going to review this list. They can adjust the quantity here if they want, and then they're going to indicate the items that they want to include in a shipment. Submit those. Those go back to the Versago database, and that's happening every day, potentially multiple times across multiple suppliers. And so Bizweaver is looking at that activity and picking up those items that are approved for shipments, as we saw in the diagram, in the flow chart, and creating those shipments and the boxes, sorting the items into boxes and creating the labels. And now, once Bizweaver's done with that work, again, our supplier can come back in, look at the shipments that it created, see how it distributed the items into shipments and how many have been, how many boxes and how many items per box. They could print the labels at a box level, or they could print all the labels for a shipment. And that is done in Crystal. And then they can come in and finish the shipment. And what they're doing here is that they've clicked on that shipment, which is a header detail record. Now they're going to come in, they're looking at a web form that reflects that record, the header information for the shipment and the details of the boxes and items that are in that shipment. And they're just going to fill out some information here, container number, invoice number, and they're going to change the status here to shipped, which is effectively their approval of the shipment that Bizweaver created automatically. Okay, so now we're going to log in as our person in purchasing at our customer's organization, and because we have this repository of data, of activity that's going on in the Versago database, they can put together some reports that sort of report on supplier performance. These are just a couple of examples assembled in a dashboard, but there's a lot of ways to sort of bring the data up and from which they can gather insights into charts and dashboards. But what our supplier, our customer really needs to do is come in and look at these shipments that have been created that the supplier has approved, and they're going to come in and just do a final check on that shipment internally. They can see that the supplier has flipped the status to shipped, and they're going to update the status to create GRPO. So effectively, this is their approval, and now Bizweaver will do the work of taking these approved shipments and creating the GRPO back in Business One. And then they also have the ability to take a look at these incoming shipments in a calendar view, and by shipment number plotted by the expected date. And they can click over at any time and they can just look at the items. So this is just ongoing there for their review. Now we have another actor in our customer's organization, and they're working in receiving. And they can also access this calendar of incoming shipments. And they have the ability to look at the details. And then when the shipment hits the docks, so to speak, or hits the receiving dock, they can come in and they're going to do perform an inspection. So they can come into a very similar looking form to what our other players were interacting with, and they can do a pass or fail, put any remarks they want in, and then sign off on it. And then as we saw in our diagram, that pass or fail will be, they also have another action, which is they're using the WMS gun to scan the label that was affixed to the box that originated from Bizweaver and was printed from Versago. So our person in receiving is inspecting, passing, scanning, and then that pass or fail gets updated in the WMS. Bizweaver does that work on a UDF in the WMS. Of course, the scan of the label goes into the WMS, and then Bizweaver does the work of taking the signature that the person wrote there on the Versago form and attaching that to as an image file in Business One associated with the GRPO. So now let's take a look. We're not going to go through how all of this solution was configured, but we'll take a look at the, sort of the core stuff. So this is the configuration of that initial report that the supplier logged in to see the items that have been requested from our customer and indicate which ones they can approve or decline. So we're naming the report, we're putting in a line of instructions. So in the end, when the supplier logs in, they'll see that line of instruction, which we saw in the previous screens. Check the boxes for the products you can fulfill. In setting up this report, we got to designate what database we're going to pull the data from. And in this case, it's going to come out of SAP. These are items associated with purchase orders. And then we're going to decide how we want to source that data. Once you've connected to an SAP database, you actually have visibility into all the queries, stored procedures, and views that have already been created in Business One. Or you can use this input entry window here to put in whatever query you want. So here's the query that is pulling the items from Business One. You can execute it. Take a look, make sure you're getting all the data correctly. Now we're going to assign the roles to it. Roles were set up in a different part of the admin console at some other time, but here we want the supplier. We always want a system administrator to be able to get in and look at stuff, but here we're going to apply the supplier role. And now what we're going to do is apply a user account level filter to this data, so the supplier will only see the items for purchase orders with their VP code on them in Business One. And that filter is called a profile, but it also gets attached to the user account and it gets attached to the report. And so when a user logs in, Versago kind of does the triangulation between the filter on the account, the filter applied to the report, and make sure that that user only sees that data that's appropriate to them. Now we're going to come in and make some adjustments to how that report is displayed to the supplier, which fields are visible, not visible, maybe make some changes to column ordering, format the way the data is presented to the user, in this case a number. For those columns that are visible, update up to a more friendly column title. The default is the database field name. Now, if you recall, the supplier had the ability to come in and not only look at those items being requested from the customer, but also to select which ones that they can fulfill. And so that's called, Versago enables you to take the records in a report and convert them into submittable records. So here, we're going to enable record submission for that report. And then you have some control over the user experience. What is the label on the submit and clear button? Set up your confirmation screen. If you recall, when the supplier approved those items and then hit submit, there was a confirmation screen. So you've got control over the title, any instructions on the confirmation screen, and then you can pick up to 3 fields from the submitted records to use as a part of, to aid the end user in confirming the record that they're submitting. So in this case, we're using the PO number, the item code, and the expected date. You've got control over button labeling, and then you're going to point this submitted record to a database, a table in a database. So in this case, we're going to right back to the Versago database there in step 3 at the bottom, and we're going to create a table to store these records. And the administrator can, type in a name for the table, and then Versago does the work of creating the table. Now, if you remember, our supplier could also decline. So we're going to link here to a form, and if you recall back on that screen, decline was a hyperlink. So we're going to put a link on that report that the user can click on, and then we're going to pass certain data from the report over to the form, where the supplier will fill out any comments as to why they're declining. So this is the link to that form. We could put a chart on top of this report if we wanted to. In this case, we're not going to, and we're just going to finish the creation of the report. So now we'll take a look at another report, and this will be the report that the supplier will come back in. They'll select from the items that they can fulfill which ones they want to ship at this point in time. So you can see they're putting a name on it. They can fill out instructions. We've connected to our database and put our query in. Now recall, those approvals and declines were submitted via Bizweaver all the way back to Business One, and we want the supplier to have a perfect view of the master data in Business One. So this query is actually against Business One. And in this case, here we're just going to show the calendar view that was available. They can select, when you click on an item in a calendar, you can select how you want those fields displayed. And you can designate what date coming back in the query results that you want to use to plot the items. In this case, they're going to be purchase orders plotted on that calendar. And you can also decide how you want those little thumbnails to appear on the calendar, how you want them to be labeled, and what any other fields you want to be shown on that thumbnail. There's little instructions here at the bottom. And so we've created this calendar view. We're also going to put a link on those fields. So when they click on an item in the calendar, they'll see the details for the item. They also click on one of those and link over to a report. In this case, it would be a form or a report. Actually, links can call a number of different things. Crystal reports, they can call a Bizweaver workflow to fire automatically. In this case, we're giving them the ability to click over to the decline form. Okay, now we're going to go through the process of creating some of the, or a couple of the forms that you saw the end users interacting with. So this is going to be, I believe this is the form where the supplier is saying, yep, I like the shipments that Bizweaver pulled together here. I'm going to approve this or ship this. So we're going to build that form. It's going to be a header detail form. It's going to be sourced from the Versago database. But we're going to use, we've already created our tables in this case. And here's the table with the header information for the shipment. Now notice there's a lot more data here than what the end user saw in the form. So this is a really powerful aspect of Versago where as the form designer, what data's got to go back to Business One, and it also often includes data that the end user doesn't need to see or be bothered with. So here we're going to set up the we're going to select the detail table that sits behind the web form. And then we're going to come in and this will show how our layout controls for the web form. So a lot of flexibility here. Any row in a web form, we use a grid control in the form designer here. Any row can have up to 12 columns in it. You can drag and drop your database fields out. So you've got a data table view over in that left pane. So you can drag database fields out, or you can drag web controls out and then assign the database field to it. And lots of different properties on the controls, which offers a lot of interactive capability for the end user on the form. Here we're just adjusting the shipment, but you can, or the caption, I'm sorry. You can see over to the right here, though, you have control over whether this field presented to the end user on the form is editable, whether it's visible or not, whether it's bound to the database table, whether it's a primary key field in the database. So this is, again, the process of laying out the web form and moving the database fields into position and updating the properties on the controls that'll be presented to the end user. The expected date, that could be a calendar control that pops up, or a date time control. This case, we're going to create a drop-down list for the end user, which can have static values or dynamic. Dynamic means they'd be sourced from a report. This case, they're static values. The end user will see that shipment method drop-down menu on the web form. And we can create more rows, add more fields, and then now we're going to work on the detail section of this form. So we create a row. We're going to bring a detail grid out, indicate how many columns will be on that detail grid. Then we can see we're going to look at the fields in the detail table, and we're going to drag them over into the layout by looking at the database fields, and again set the properties on all those detail fields. And that is essentially what's involved in configuring a form for an end user using the Versago administrative console. It's very straightforward process, and there's a lot of interactive power that can be applied to these web forms that ultimately ends saving the user time and effort in filling them out. Here what we're doing is we've cloned that form that we just created, because we now need to make another form that's similar to it but not exactly the same. And this is going to be the form that the person in the receiving side will use to sign off when they're doing the inspection, to sign off and put their signature on it. So we're going to add a remarks field. That's a multi-line text field. And we're going to drag a signature capture control out onto the field. And when the end user, what they'll experience is they'll see that signature capture control on their tablet, and they can go ahead and sign off. So that's not every aspect of the Versago side of the configuration, but effectively that's it. And then it's just a matter of creating a couple more reports for a couple more users, a couple more variations on that form, setting up the user accounts themselves, which is very simple, setting up the roles so you can define what people can do, are also entailed in configuring one of these websites. And we also have the Bizweaver workflows behind the scenes. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is that Versago and Bizweaver they ship together. They're covered under the same price for Versago. And we also ship with them what we call standard content. So we have a very extensive library of already created reports and forms in Versago that reflect all of the major record and document types in Business One. And we've already created a wide variety of Bizweaver workflows that you would use over and over in moving the data from the Versago database over to Business One. And Bizweaver has a great user interface and a lot of flexibility for modifying those workflows. So not enough time today to get into that aspect of the configuration, but we've taken a lot of the work out for our customers and partners by adding this standard content library. The other thing that I wanted to show you here is just how many, when you have a system like Versago and Bizweaver with all this configuration power at your fingertips, there are just so many use cases. And we find that the word portal doesn't really adequately describe the power of the combination of these tools. People will think, well, yeah, I've seen a customer portal. I know what those look like. Or I've seen a sales rep portal. But with Versago, you can address those use cases, but also all sorts of unique use cases that remove paper and manual effort and sneakernet and email and spreadsheeting around organizations, from the smallest, simplest use cases to some slightly more involved, like this, like an external interaction with another company. So I'm just going to roll a list here of some of those use cases just to give you an idea of the vast range of problems that can be solved. And these are all different ways in which these tools have been applied in our customers' organization. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of the incredible range of applications there are here. And really, I want to emphasize no custom coding. This isn't custom code. This isn't coding an app, and then when your requirements change one day, a couple months later, or a year later, having to go in and modify that code. This is configuration, and changing as you grow and as your use cases evolve is really just a matter of going into the admin console or opening up Bizweaver, making the appropriate configuration changes. Typically relatively simple, straightforward stuff, and provides an awful lot of utility to our customers and hopefully you. So with that, I think we're going to open it up to questions. So I do have one question here. How long does it take to make modifications to a form you've built? And can I have user-defined fields as data input? So I think we saw in the example there that there were three. Yeah, the answer is yes. Any user-defined fields or tables, objects within Business One, both Versago and Bizweaver can interface with them. In sort of current SAP vernacular, these are loosely coupled apps. And because of that, there's a lot of flexibility in the way they interface back with the backend system. Database or tables and fields supporting add-ons that you've already purchased with other vendors, absolutely. So yeah, and then in terms of how long it takes to make modifications to a form, generally speaking, as with anything, the time is really thinking about what you want to do. So call that your requirements definition. So, but once you've thought it through, what adjustments you need to make to a form, it really is literally a matter of minutes to hours, not days. It's relatively simple to go in, and we've got convenient functionality like cloning, where you can copy existing stuff and then make modifications to it, whether it's reports or forms. That takes a lot of the effort out of it. See if any other.
Hey, Mike, this is Mike Nardini. I actually just saw a pop-up with one more question. And it was actually just, how long does the install of Versago take overall? And how long would it take to implement the supplier portal that you showed us today?
Oh, okay. So the installation is literally like an hour. It's very simple. It's just a straight ahead Microsoft stack. So we Windows Server, SQL database, so SQL Server, and IIS, and all of those components and the software itself can literally be up in 1-2 hours. Probably many of you have done that already for other applications in your organization. And then the supplier portal, generally it's a matter of, it might be a couple of days or a few days. And the reason I say that is it's not so much the configuration of the content, it's every business is a little different. Everybody has a slightly different way of interacting with their suppliers or their supply chain or their trading partners. And so what we really, advise our customers is just to take a day or two and carefully think through the requirements. And that's usually the bulk of the time, just getting a clear understanding of what the requirements are. Then configuration time is really a matter of, maybe a day or two for a supplier portal like this, and then with some testing, maybe a little bit of adjusting. But it's really a very predictable, controlled, self-contained project. I will say that we also suggest to customers that with our standard content, if you want to get other stakeholders in your business up and running quickly with inventory reports or the ability to look at POs or bill of materials or any document type or to submit data back, those things can be accomplished within a day. They're very quick. You don't necessarily have to go for the bigger use case on day one. But in any event, it's hours to a couple of days. Any other questions? Okay. Well, with that, I think we're going to sign off. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Hope you found this interesting, informative, and maybe hopefully piqued your interest in the products. If you have any questions at all or would like to discuss these further, let me just put up this final slide here with contact info. Please contact either Corey or Mike, and I'll leave this slide up here for a couple of seconds. Or, of course, you can come to the twbs.com website and get any information or contact us that way. Okay, so with that, we're going to wrap it up. And thanks again for joining, and have a great day.